Hello and a warm welcome to the news on NTA International, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Obiageli Ugoke. We'll begin with the headlines. ECOWAS Extraordinary Summit on COVID-19. President Buhari calls for more collaboration to save the region. Nigerian Air Force launches aeromedical evacuation systems in response to COVID-19. Federal government receives reports on disbursement of second phase of Abuja loots. Many thanks for joining us. Now the details of the news. President Muhammadu Buhari has called on fellow ECOWAS leaders to look beyond the challenges posed by the COVID-19 and tap into various opportunities that it presents for the betterment of lives in member countries. Speaking at an extraordinary ECOWAS summit on COVID-19 held via teleconferencing, President Buhari calls for more collaboration to save the region from the deadly pandemic through sharing of experiences and best practices. State House correspondent Jide Onifade now reports.
In every situation, such as this current coronavirus pandemic, there are opportunities, and that is quoting President Muhammadu Buhari, who is urging other African leaders to seek these opportunities by implementing critical policies that before now look difficult to accept.
Regarding public finances, revenues are declining drastically due to the fall in commodity prices. At the same time, government continues to spend massively on the containment of the virus, medical care for those infected, and minimizing the impact of the crisis on the poor and vulnerable. This situation puts severe pressure on our finances by increasing our expenditures and dwindling revenues. This invariably has led to a restructuring and reduction of our budget.
The president outlined some measures Nigeria has taken in response to the pandemic, which include the reduction of interest rates on all applicable Central Bank of Nigeria interventions from 9% to 5%, inauguration of Presidential Task Force to coordinate national efforts to combat the spread of the virus and ensure efficiency and effectiveness in line with the Nigerian action plans on health security, and the provision of relief materials, including medical and food, as well as conditional cash transfer to the poor and vulnerable households. The president informs the summit further that more isolation centers and testing facilities have been established to contain the spread of the virus.
We should also explore opportunities to promote strong, dynamic agricultural policies that will guarantee food security for our people, creating jobs and reducing poverty in the region. We must innovate and use technology to boost the digital economy and do things differently but better.
The president reiterates Nigerians' commitment to the well-being of the people of the sub-region, and also restates support for initiatives arising from the summit to curb the spread of the pandemic. President Muhammadu Buhari expresses sadness over the loss of lives and condoles those that have lost loved ones, and as well wishes those on sick bed good health. In the State House, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
Thank you very much, Jide. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has been elected to lead other leaders in the West Africa sub-region in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. The decision was taken at an extraordinary summit by the Economic Community of West African States held via teleconferencing. Special advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, speaks more on the appointment.
Challenge that COVID-19 has posed to economies in West Africa was discussed back and forth, and there were articulations of what to do to combat COVID and what to do post-COVID, which is very important. That is what is expected of leadership, to think ahead. So the West African leaders discussed how to tackle the period of COVID-19 and what to do post-COVID. Now, at the end of it all, it was decided that there should be a champion who will lead the response of the sub-region. And that champion is President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria. So our president is going to lead the response of West Africa to the challenge of COVID-19.
And on our global updates, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the coronavirus pandemic is fast becoming a human rights crisis, as he calls on governments to ensure that health care is available and accessible to all people. Joyce Someto gives us an overview of the pandemic worldwide.
As at 11:25 p.m. 22nd of April, Nigeria recorded a total of 873 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country. 28 people have died, while 197 infected people have been discharged. The recent figures reported by the NCDC show that Lagos is the epicenter of the virus in Nigeria, with 504 cases. FCT has a total of 119, Kano 73, Oyo and Edo has 17 each. 3 in Rivers, Sokoto and Adamawa has 1 case each. Meanwhile, a tally by Worldometer as at 6 p.m. showed that the African continent as a whole registers 26,870 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 1,247 deaths and 7,434 recoveries. And Ethiopia recorded no new case of COVID-19 for the first time since April 2. The country has a total of 116 infections, 3 deaths and 21 recoveries. Away from Africa, a record by Johns Hopkins University as at 6 p.m. indicated that global infection from COVID-19 has reached 2,672,133. while the death toll stood at 186,912. More than 700,000 infected people have recovered. And Spain has seen a slight rise in fatalities as it recorded 440 deaths in the past 24 hours, bringing the national death toll to 22,157. In Italy, the coronavirus death toll has surpassed 25,000. The total number of infections is now 187,327. Meanwhile, China has reported an 8th consecutive day of no new coronavirus deaths, but there were 10 new positive tests in the last 24 hours. The country also says it had 6 new imported cases. And lastly, Japanese health officials say 48 crew members of an Italian cruise ship docked in the port city of Nagasaki have tested positive for the novel coronavirus. And that's it from here. Many thanks for staying. I am Joyce Umetu.
And for more on the coronavirus pandemic updates, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 directed the Nigeria Disease Control to dispatch team of experts to Kano State for contact tracing to slow down the spread of the virus. Chairman of the task force, Boss Gida Mustafa, who stated this at Thursday's briefing, says the task force is worried over stigmatization of patients of coronavirus disease.
So every country has its own experience. We believe that even within the Nigerian context, we have our own experience. And whatever final decision we will take going forward will be informed by the experiences that we've garnered over the course of the last 2 months as we've dealt with this pandemic as it has afflicted our nation.
Has directed and in line with the directive, NCDC has already redeployed at least 17 persons, including 7 from the WHO to Kano, to deal with the current issues that have arisen. In addition to this, the DG NCDC has worked with the State Emergency Operating Center to reorganize the way it functions, and a joint team together with that from the state government is currently investigating the concerns with regards to deaths. Additional lab equipments have also been sent to Kano yesterday.
Minister of Health Dr. Sage Hanire says the Nigeria Center for Disease Control has visited 9 states in the last 4 days to assess the level of preparedness to combat COVID-19. He therefore urged health workers to always take precautionary measures while handling patients. The minister cautioned Nigerians against embarking on travels to any part of the country as it exposes one to greater risk of contracting the deadly virus. How do you think life will be like under this COVID-19 lockdown if you had no access to news and information on any platform, including radio, television, newspapers, and the social media? Amina Baba Suleiman takes a look at journalists in front line of the war against coronavirus.
Nigeria, like other countries of the world, is at war with the invading virus that has claimed the lives of more than 170,000 people worldwide. People are directed to stay indoors while medical personnel put their lives on the line to treat those infected with the COVID-19. Just like their counterparts in the health sector, journalists are also at the war front. As the World Health Organization describes, media as crucial in dealing with the pandemic.
When you talk about COVID-19 in terms of it being an unseen enemy, and in the field you have to take every precaution. Just like when a soldier is going into battle, he has to be well prepared.
Other reporters emphasize that journalists, including photographers and video camera operators, are prone to contracting the virus.
The federal government, the NCDC, they have given guidelines for us to be followed, and I'm adhering to that directive completely to ensure I'm safe at this particular moment.
Every day meeting people and going back home, I feel, this fear of the disease, it's always there.
It's quite unfortunate that the coronavirus is here. So many people are not having the correct information and the necessary information concerning the whole thing. But thank God the social media and conventional media out there, trying to give the information that is necessary to the public.
Our job of reporting and covering events that has to do with COVID-19 and other national issues is crucial at this period. While on duty, we pray for God's protection. Amina Baba Suleiman, NTA News.
Thank you very much, Amina. And for more on journalists in the front line, let's now join National President of the Nigeria Union of Journalists, Chris Isiguzo, via Skype from Abuja. Mr. Isiguzo, can you confirm to us the situation in Adamawa Council concerning one of the union members who contracted coronavirus? Adamawa Council concerning one of the union's member who contracted coronavirus. We apologize for the failure in that interview. It appears the network is very poor. Moving on, China is scaling up efforts for a new image on the world stage in the fight against coronavirus as the Asian nation increases assistance and donations of medical supplies to COVID-19 affected countries, including Nigeria. The latest of the supplies comes from China General Chamber of Commerce in Nigeria. Usman Aliyu now reports.
Chinese support to Nigeria comes amid worrying rise in the number of infections registered in recent days across states. With the efforts by the federal and state governments in adopting sweeping measures to contain community transmission, the demand for medical equipment are increasingly needed at this moment. The Chinese government this time, through its Chamber of Commerce, donated respirators and surgical masks, gloves, gowns, goggles, infrared thermometers and shoes to Nigeria.
Despite the daunting task remaining at home, China firmly supports Nigeria's fight against the outbreak and stands ready to assist, if needed, to the best of its ability.
And in this war against the virus, we should protect each other and we should assist each other.
The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says Nigeria identifies with China for its rapid response and transparency exhibited in fighting the pandemic.
You have also provided us with assistance, technical assistance in terms of manpower. Nigeria is very grateful for this. The PTF is very grateful.
Nigeria is also asking for more post-COVID-19 interventions to jumpstart the economy. In Abuja, Usman Aliu, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. More reports when we return. Please stay with us.
The Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs enjoins the Nigerian Muslim Ummah to search for the crescent of Ramadan 1441 AH immediately after sunset of Thursday, April 23rd, 2020, equivalent to Sha'ban 29th, 1441 AH. The Sultan would make an appropriate announcement based on your findings. The Council has directed the suspension of congregational Taraweeh prayers, Majalis al-Tafsir, Quranic sessions, and i'tikaf seclusion in the mosques during the month of Ramadan. Islamic scholars and organizations are to employ the electronic media for dissemination of tafsir and other da'wah activities. Janaza, washing, shrouding, prayer and burial of Muslim victims are to be carried out by officials of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, and other government health officials. Detailed guidelines on the suspension and the janaza are available on the Council's website and are being published in national dailies and sent to the federal and state governments as well as leadership of state councils and various Islamic organizations. The Quran says, "Make not your own hands contribute to your destruction." His Eminence the Sultan praised the Almighty Allah to preserve our lives beyond the Ramadan and grant us its blessings. Allahumma ballighna Ramadan. Mr. Yusuf Nwoha, Director Administration, Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, announcer.
NTA International News. Africa as it is.
Thanks for staying with us. And for more information on journalists in frontline of the coronavirus, we are now joining the NUJ President, Chris Isiguzo, via Skype from Abia. Mr. Isiguzo, can you confirm to us the situation in Adamawa Council concerning one of the union's members who contracted coronavirus?
Thank you very much. We got a report about one of our colleagues, the young man that works with Daily Trust, who has been confirmed to be positive to this deadly pandemic. And already we have asked our colleagues in Adamawa, especially members of the Correspondence Chapel, to proceed on self-isolation, mostly those that have had contact with the index case in that state. The situation clearly buttresses the fact that journalists are not just on the front line, they are also very strategic in the ongoing battle against COVID-19. Already, we have had the situation in Adamawa, and we are also conscious of the fact that our colleagues across the country are playing one role or the other, because you cannot remove them from this battle, because they need to be fully involved in informing, educating Nigerians about this deadly virus. As a union, we are very much concerned, and I want to once again use this opportunity to call on government and, of course, employers of media practitioners, media owners, Nigerian Newspaper Operators Association of Nigeria, who, of course, are the owners of newspapers, that it has become very, very imperative for journalists to be fully equipped to be able to discharge this responsibility. In the area of PPE, safety kits, they are very, very necessary. We've already appealed to the Minister of Information and by extension, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. Journalists are supposed to be fully equipped to be able to discharge this responsibility so that we don't have more cases beyond Adamawa involving media practitioners. It is really, really, really disturbing.
Yes, Mr. Isiguzo, in terms of palliative for members, what is NUJ doing?
As a union, we clearly don't have the wherewithal, but we have also appealed to government and other relevant stakeholders that this is a time for them to come to Macedonia and give us help. We have so many of our colleagues who are indigent. We have so many of them who are vulnerable, so to speak. And it therefore becomes very, very needful for government to come to our aid. Not just journalists. We also have some media organizations, private media organizations. They are now grappling with these situations. Some of them, if care is not taken, they are going to pack up. There is need for government, through this presidential task force, to reach out to these organizations. The practitioners themselves, the organizations, they need to be assisted at this point in time. It will be more dangerous for the media platforms to pack up in the peak or in the heat of this deadly pandemic. We need to be encouraged one way or the other so as to continue to discharge this responsibility. Palliatives, very, very important. As I am speaking as the president of NUJ, I know what I go through every other day. Journalists calling me from every part of the country. They are in dire need of palliatives. But I cannot do it all. So I want to once again use the opportunity to call on government, public-spirited individuals. We've had so many of them making donations. This is the time for them to also extend this gesture to the media, so that we will continue to discharge the job, the responsibility of informing Nigerians, educating Nigerians, sensitizing Nigerians, mobilizing Nigerians as this pandemic continues to soar in our system.
Thank you very much, Mr. Isiguzo, for your response. That was Chris Isiguzo, the President, Nigerian Union of Journalists, on journalists in the front line of coronavirus. And away from that, the Nigeria Governors Forum is sustaining far-reaching measures in curbing the spread of coronavirus pandemic. Abubakar Usman Akwanga reports that the commitment was strengthened during the forum's 6th teleconferencing meeting.
In a 7-paragraphs communique issued at the end of the 6th teleconference meeting, the forum resolved to sustain partnership with federal government, multilateral organizations, and the private sectors across 25 states to contain the ravaging COVID-19, with emphasis on community response to transmission. The forum also resolved to work closely with the Nigerian Center for Disease Control to ensure adequate supply of personal protective equipment to prevent the lives of those in the front line of the fight against the pandemic. The Governors Forum, through its chairman and governor of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, says a strategic partnership with the Presidential Task Force will be sustained, and also agreed to the implementation of interstate lockdown to mitigate spread of the virus. The forum commiserated with President Muhammadu Buhari and the country over the demise of the Chief of Staff, late Malang Abakari, and others who lost their lives from the deadly virus, and observed a minute silence in repose of their souls. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
And on the ELC 4th meeting, the Economic Sustainability Committee held its 4th meeting this Thursday with Vice President Yemi Oshibajo presiding at the meeting. 3 subcommittees filed in reports for review. The Economic Sustainability Committee now meets almost on daily basis, and this is to hasten the preparation of final reports to be submitted to the President for approval. Minister of State for Budget and National Planning speaks more on the meeting.
These subcommittees are the costing committee on the forthcoming sustainability plan, because we want to put numbers to the various programs that we are doing. There's a job creation committee. They also made a report. And then the third committee has to do with how to gradually reopen the economy. These three committees are still doing further work based on the meetings we had today. By the time they finalize, we'll be making the presentations and getting approvals.
Turning now to NAF emergency response. Supporting the national response to COVID-19 is now a priority, and the Nigerian Air Force is enhancing its aeromedical evacuation systems in response to the national health emergency. The first correspondent, Najatu Tijani, tells us more.
It's a matter of life and death for this patient being evacuated to the Nigerian Air Force C-130 cargo aircraft. Though a simulation, the NAF says it is not taking any chances, as this scenario could play out in real life if more cases of COVID-19 are confirmed.
In the past, we used to evacuate patients with these aircrafts, but we didn't have stretchers and other life support equipment like we have them here today. And this is not only for COVID-19, it can be wounded soldiers in the battlefield.
This is why the nurses and flight crew have been trained in aeromedical evacuation.
I'm in the Charlie 130, the C-130 Hercules cargo aircraft, which can carry anything from trucks to troops, but has now been converted to a mobile air hospital, so to speak, with a life support system, a ventilator for patients suspected of having COVID-19, which can carry 76 patients to various isolation centers across the country.
Meanwhile, the Armed Forces of Nigeria, through the Directorate of Defense Media Operations, says it has destroyed compounds housing Boko Haram terrorists through its Air Task Force of Operation Lafiya Dole at Bulawa in Borno State. And troops of Operation Hadarindaji have neutralized more than 20 bandits at Zirimi local government area in Zamfara State. Unfortunately, 4 of the soldiers paid the ultimate price in the encounter. And in Lagos, the Nigerian Navy ship Bini has rescued a Beninois crew after its fishing vessel caught fire. Najatu Tijani, NTA News.
And that concludes this news package on NTA International. Please remember, coronavirus is real. Maintain a very high personal hygiene standards and wash your hands regularly to stay safe. Thank you for staying with us.